order value or your average sale value, and then you've got to multiply it by your profit margin. So let's say, for example, that your average order value is $100 and your profit margin is 25%. That tells us that you can afford to spend $25 maximum per customer. Okay, now if you are a lead generation business, if your website is designed to generate leads, you want to multiply this by your sales team's conversion rate. So if your sales team closes 1 in 2 customers, for example, then you'll need to multiply this by 50%. So that's going to give you a maximum cost per lead that you want to spend of $12.50. If you want to get a handle on your digital marketing ROI so that you can increase it, then you're in luck. This is exactly what we're going to be doing today. Welcome to Exposure Ninja. My name's Tim. I'm head ninja and CEO at Exposure Ninja, which is a digital marketing agency. Today we're going to be looking at digital marketing ROI, how to measure it and how to improve it. It's really important that you measure your digital marketing ROI across all the different channels that you're working so you can work out where to put your focus and where to put your budget in order to make the most profit. So we're going to look at some examples today, and I'm going to show you a live client example to walk through some different ROI metrics that you want to be tracking, and we can talk through some of the calculations involved and how to make decisions based on the data that we're finding. The business that we're going to be using as an example is both e-commerce and lead generation. So this video applies to you whether you're running an e-commerce store or whether you're using your website to generate leads. For example, you're a services firm. Now, hopefully I don't really need to explain why tracking ROI is important. We see businesses making all sorts of ridiculous marketing decisions when they get fixed on other metrics like follow accounts or even respect in their industry. I ran a LinkedIn poll recently. By the way, follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already. I ran a LinkedIn poll recently which asked people what they wanted from their ad campaign. Now, 2/3 of people said ROI, and 1/3 of people gave these really strange answers, which was everything from we want to be really creative to we want to get respect from our competitors, which makes absolutely no sense. The purpose of marketing should be to generate an ROI, which is why this stuff and the calculations that we're going to be looking at today should be central of your digital marketing decision making. In fact, to me, marketing without calculating ROI would be like playing sports without keeping score, right? Loads of shouting, you waste loads of energy, and it's prone to ending in arguments. Now, the great news is that digital marketing gives us the best opportunity to track marketing ROI ever, right? Our parents and grandparents would have loved the data and the analysis that we can do today. You know, if you think back to a time when marketing was newspaper ads and radio, when it was almost impossible to really clearly track ROI, then what we've got today and the level of analysis that we can do, even just using free tools, is insane, completely mind-blowing. You know that saying, half of my marketing spend is wasted. The trouble is I just don't know which half. Well, today there is absolutely no reason for that to be the case. So in this video, we're going to start really basic, looking at some top level overview stuff. Then we're going to start to go a little bit deeper. I'm even going to try and do some maths on the iPad live. Mrs. Henderson would be so proud. Actually, she probably wouldn't. It's just no pleasing some people. Anyway, a couple of tools that you'll need. Firstly, you'll need Google Analytics. That's it. That's all we're going to be using for our marketing ROI tracking today. Now, of course, you can go more in depth, and we'll talk about some of the ways that you can do that later on. If you take a lot of your sales over the phone, then you might want a phone tracking service like ResponseTap, which plugs into Google Analytics and will allow you to judge the quality of the leads coming through over the phone. But we're going to talk about going a bit more in depth later on. Predominantly today, we're going to stick with top level stuff and make it as actionable as possible. Ready? Then let's begin. Alrighty, so if we open Google Analytics and we have conversion tracking set up, which is extremely important, then we're going to see something like this screen here. Now, this is for one of our clients, relatively small client, doing about 150K a month through their website. This is a combination, remember, of e-commerce and lead generation. But the reason I wanted to use this client is because they have a combination of lead generation and e-commerce. And also, we've been working with them since the very start of this website. website. So it allows us to show the growth as well. Now, there's a couple of metrics that we want to have in mind before we start looking at marketing ROI. And those are, firstly, average order value, or AOV. This is on average how much somebody spends when they buy from us. So we can see in this example that these 1,200 sales have generated 200,000 approximately in revenue. So our average order value is 200k divided by 1,200 sales, which equals about £160 per order. So 160 is our average order value. So if you're a lead generation business, then you'll need to know your average lead value, which is calculated slightly differently. So first thing you need to know is how much your average order value is. So when your sales team closes a sale, what it's worth to them. Now, our average lead value is calculated by multiplying our average order value by our sales conversion rate. Now, in this case, the average order value for leads generated to their business is actually quite a lot higher, because these tend to be the bigger purchases that people want to talk to someone first. So just to make things really simple, we're going to say that their average order value for the leads generated is £1,000 rather than the 160. And let's say that their sales team closes on average 1 in 5 of these leads. Okay, so that gives us a conversion rate of 20%. So that tells us that their average lead value is £200. I just live with the constant fear that I've made a basic mathematical error at the start of these, and then I just use that throughout the entire video. Let me know in the comments if I've done exactly that. Now, assuming that we've got our average order value of £160 and we've got our average lead value of £200, we can start to make some very broad marketing ROI calculations. The next thing that we need to know is how much we're spending on digital marketing. Now, in order to start working out some really basic top-level marketing calculations, all we need to know is how much they're spending on marketing versus how much they're making. We're going to go a little bit further in depth, but just working out very basic stuff to begin with. So the ROI is calculated by money out divided by money in, or technically money out minus money in divided by money in. Okay, so let's say sales minus investment divided by investment. Okay, so in this case, their marketing investment is very straightforward to calculate. They don't have an internal marketing team. They don't have any other marketing overheads. All of their marketing investment is Exposure Ninja and ad fees. So that's really, really straightforward to calculate. So just using very round numbers here, we can say that their investment is £10,000 per month. So now we need to work out how many sales it generated for that £10,000 a month investment. And we can see here that revenue average over the last couple of months, this is a 2-month period, we can see that revenue is around about 100k. So they've got 100k of e-commerce sales, plus they've got the sales generated by their lead. So if you're a lead generation business, this is what you would do instead. Now, calculating the number of leads is a little bit more complex. What we're going to do is we're just going to ignore anything that comes through the phone, anything that comes through email, which is obviously incorrect. We'd want to go and count those leads up. We're just going to use contact form submissions to represent the number of leads that they're generating. Okay, so in this case, they've had 367 leads through those 2 months. So that's about 180 leads per month. And their average lead value, remember, is £200. So that gives us approximate revenue per lead of 180 times the 200, which is 36k. Right, so their digital marketing ROI is 136k minus the 10k they're investing, so that's 126, divided by the 10k. Okay, so 126 divided by 10k, they are making a 12.6 times return on investment. So in other words, they put £1 in or $1 in and they get £12.60 or $12.60 out. Okay, so that is their marketing ROI. So you can express this as a ratio, like a 12.6, or you can express it as a percentage. And obviously if it is a percentage, it will be 1260%. Now, what we need to take into consideration now is profit margin, because if your profit margin is, let's say, 50%, then your ROI would be 50% of this, okay? Using these numbers, we're assuming that it's just based on revenue, not based on profit. Now, when you're making decisions about how heavy to go with your digital marketing, then you want to make your decisions based on profit, not just revenue. But for the sake of this video, we're actually just comparing the different channels to see how the ROI is different. So as long as we're using the same method for each one, it doesn't matter whether we use revenue or whether we use profit. For the sake of simplicity and doing live maths, I'm going to use revenue because it's a lot easier. You're still here, you sicko. So this gives us a really basic top level overview of digital marketing ROI. But this information isn't that useful because it doesn't actually help us make decisions like where should we be focusing our budget. It just tells us that broadly, digital marketing seems to be working. So if we want to start working out where we want to put our budget to generate the best ROI, we need to start looking at the ROI per channel, okay? Don't worry, if I can do this, you can do this. So for the sake of keeping things simple, I don't know how many times I've said that and we're still not simple, trying to keep things simple, we're going to just look at e-commerce conversions here. You can use leads if your business is lead generation. Obviously, just use your average lead value. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different channels here, organic search and paid search, and just look at the different ROIs of each. But before we do that, let's broadly look at all of the different marketing channels being used on this site. So we've got organic search at the top here. We can see the number of visitors that are being brought into the site. And we can see the e-commerce revenue. Remember that there is revenue from the leads as well, but just to keep things simple, we're just going to be looking at e-commerce here. And we can see the number of transactions that have taken place. So we can see, for example, that we've had 20,000 visitors over the course of this 2 months, and we've made £57,000 in sales. So that tells us that our organic search, i.e. our SEO work, basically is generating about £29,000 a month in sales, right? There's going to be branded traffic in there. We'll come back to that. If we contrast this with paid search, we can see that we've had 12,000 visits through paid search, but we've generated a higher number of sales, and those sales have been more valuable. We have £77,000 worth of sales from the 1,200 visits from paid search. So we can see that on average, our paid search is generating in the region of £38,500 per month in sales. We've also got direct traffic. Now, direct traffic is a relatively small number of visitors, only 5,000 visitors, but that traffic has driven £58,761 in sales. So this feels like a really high converting and a very profitable traffic source. Now, direct traffic, by the way, is people that have typed your website address into their browser bar. So it's people that have gone straight onto your website, or people that have found their way onto your website and Google doesn't really know how they got there, right? So it's a bit of a catch-all bucket. So direct traffic for this business, as for many businesses, looks to be incredibly profitable, not least because we haven't paid to get those people onto the site. Now, the direct traffic onto the site is going to be a combination of repeat visitors, people who've bought from you before, and for this business, that is a fairly decent chunk of the direct traffic, is people who've already bought from them before and have come back to make follow-up purchases. You're also going to get people in direct traffic who have maybe seen your brand somewhere. So for example, for this business, we do a lot of digital PR. We get them featured in a lot of places because they have an eco-friendly angle, and people will then go and type their website address into their browser window and they'll go straight to the website to purchase. So this direct traffic is like a combination of lots of different things, which muddies the water slightly because it means that we can't 100% trust that that is all the revenue that organic search or paid search is generating. Another thing to watch out for is referral traffic. Sometimes your referral traffic will be people who are coming through your checkout process. Let's say that people buy through PayPal, and then when they come back onto your site, after being in the PayPal window, they're counted as a referral visitor. So what you can sometimes find is that your referral traffic is really, really valuable, and you're thinking, what's going on here? You have a look and it's actually all from PayPal or Stripe, and that means that really it's come from one of these other sources instead. So that's a tracking issue that needs to be resolved. But broadly speaking, we're going to trust the numbers that we can see here and just have a look at the paid search and the organic search. Let's take a look at paid search first of all. If we go into Google Ads, we can see the amount that's being spent on the ads and how much is being generated through e-commerce. So we can see that there's a whole bunch of different campaigns here. We've got a smart shopping campaign, we've got dynamic search ads, we've got branded search. So this is people that are actually searching for our client's brand name. And then we've got some other stuff that's not active here. Now let's talk about the branded search first of all. This is people that are searching for the client's brand, and it's really important that you split this out and you understand what this data is showing you, because this is people that are already searching for our client. So this isn't new traffic. That's why with 1,100 visitors and only £600 in spend, they've generated £40,000 in revenue, because this is most likely to be repeat customers, okay? So very, very high ROI on that channel. We've got £40,000 generated for £600 of sales. So that's like a 60x. That's like, yeah, 62x or something. Really, really massive, massive ROI. Now up here, we've got the smart shopping campaign and dynamic search ads. So these are predominantly targeted at people that haven't bought before. And we can see that this traffic for around about a £4,000 ad cost has generated in the region of £37,000 worth of sales. So this allows us to calculate our next metric, which is return on ad spend. So how you calculate your return on ad spend, or ROAS, is the money generated by your ads. So in this case, 37K. Divided by your ad spend. So in this case, it's 4K. And we're just looking here at the non-branded stuff. So I'm not looking at the branded stuff. We're just looking at the non-branded stuff at the top here. Now this gives us a ROAS of 9.25x, not percent, Tim, X. That means we put £1 in the Google Ads machine and we get £9.25 back. Now, of course, we want to think about profit margin. That's not all profit, but that is a decent figure depending on the market that you're in. That's a pretty decent figure. So as we start to think about what these numbers tell us and the insights that we can get from this and how we can decide to invest, what we would see from this is that investing in non-branded new traffic to the site is going to be really valuable. That's going to be a valuable thing to do, because don't forget, we're not only generating the first sale, we're also driving future purchases, right? With this traffic here, we're making money on it. Yes, we're making decent money. We're making 9.25 times return on ad spend, but we're also building up a customer base which is going to come back and search for us later on, where we can get an even sicker return on ad spend. So this allows us to start making some really smart decisions. And what you'll often find is if you're running a few different paid ad channels, let's say for example that you're running Google ads against Facebook ads, you'll see the ROAS being very different between those channels. Most of the clients that we work on, if they're running two different paid ad channels, there'll be a significant difference in one of the channels. We'll usually find that one of them is significantly more profitable. So this allows you to start making sensible, rational decisions about where to put your ad spend. But also, if you want to go to your director and say, we need more marketing budget, and they'll say, well, how do we know? Well, you say, look, every pound that we're putting into Google, we're getting £9.25 back, or $9.25 if we're putting $1 in. They're going to say, okay, let me get you some more dollars. Okay, so that's pay-per-click, which is very straightforward to measure. Whether you're running Facebook ads or whether you're running Google ads, your pay-per-click numbers are by far the easiest to measure an ROI on. Now let's think about organic channels. So organic search or organic social media. These are much, much more difficult to attribute an ROI to, and there's two main reasons. Firstly, you don't get as granular data about the people that are coming through these channels onto your website. Now, you're not able to track with the same level of confidence how much of your organic traffic is branded, i.e. already knew about you, versus people that are coming onto your site cold. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. The other variable with organic channels like SEO and social social media, as it takes a lot of time to build these channels up. Now, if I just zoom out from this particular client to show you, since the time that we've started working together, and then we have a look at their organic traffic over this period, you can see there that orange line has grown steadily. They've been investing the same amount in their SEO with us every single month since that started. Now, at the start of the campaign, that return on investment looked really, really low because they were getting a very small number of people onto the site. We're talking like 70 visits per day. Now, of course, a year later, we've increased that number significantly. They've like 5x the amount of organic traffic they're getting onto the site daily. So their ROI appears to have gone up from organic search. But really what's happening is that their investment is now starting to pay off. If we follow the same pattern and play it out for another year, or let's say that we're able to increase their daily organic visitors by another 5x over the next year, well, all of a sudden the ROI on the SEO is going to look stupid high, because what they're really seeing is they're seeing all of that accumulated investment start to pay off. So the ROI for organic channels can be much, much more difficult to track. And actually it can be very difficult to say on a particular month or on a particular day what your ROI on something like SEO or organic social media is. So what we have to do is we just have to take a snapshot time period. So let's say, for example, we just look at a 1 month snapshot, this month of March, and we say, right, this business invested around £6,000 in SEO during that time period. And from all the organic traffic on the site, they generated 38,000 in sales. Now that's going to give you some ROI number. What it's not going to do is it's not going to break out the branded traffic. It's not going to break out the people that were searching for you anyway because they're a repeat customer. It's not going to break out the people that saw your ad mentioned and then decided to Google you and then click on your organic result. But that will give you a number. And what you can do is you can plot that ROI over time. So let's say, for example, that you measure money in versus money out for organic traffic. When you start, particularly if you have very low visibility of your website, you're going to be really kind of in the deep. You're going to be negative ROI, and you're probably going to stay there for some time. But what's going to happen over time, as your visibility starts to increase, as the work and the time and the energy that you've put in starts to pay off, your ROI is going to increase, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow, and it's going to grow. Now, sometimes it's a straight line graph. Sometimes if a particular ranking blocker is unlocked, then it can be quite a rapid increase. But it's the shape that you're looking for, because any organic channel takes time to build and it takes patience. So expecting the sort of fast ROI that you would see with a paid ad channel really doesn't happen. Even with paid ad channels like Google Ads, your ROI won't be immediate. And often we're able to significantly improve the ROI from a paid channel over time. It's not uncommon for us to be improving a campaign 6, 12, even 18 months into management and still extracting more profit from it. So a paid channel can actually exhibit a pretty similar shape to some organic channels. But what you will usually find with paid traffic is that the point of ROI happens sooner. By the way, if you've enjoyed this video so far, don't forget that the team here at Exposure Ninja want to help you improve your digital marketing ROI. We have a free service called a website and digital marketing review, where we will take a look at your website, the digital marketing that you're doing. We'll even have a look at your Google Analytics if you want as well. And we'll analyze what's working really well for you, what really isn't working, what's working for your competitors that you might be wanting to copy. We'll then put all of these recommendations into a 15-minute video, which we'll send to you via email. It's completely free of charge and it's totally awesome. So request your free website and marketing review from exposureninja.com today. Literally now. Go and do it right now. You can pause the video, go and request your free website and marketing review, then come back. It takes you like 30 seconds to request a review. It'll be the best thing that you've ever done. Okay, so far we've looked at how to calculate ROI, how to calculate return on ad spend, and how to compare the ROI profiles of different ad channels, different digital marketing channels, to work out where you should be focusing your time and energy. But we're going to go a little bit deeper here. Not too much deeper, just a little bit. But I want to help you identify a target metric, and that target metric is what's called your maximum cost per acquisition, or CP. I can't even spell cost per acquisition. Or CPA max. So your CPA max is the most that you can afford to spend to get a lead or a sale. And this is a really important metric to understand because this is your break-even point with your digital marketing. Anytime you're running an ad channel, you're going to have the opportunity to increase the budget. And usually, as you increase the budget, you will eventually see your return on investment start to tail off as you reach saturation with the ad audience that you're targeting. So how do you know when to stop increasing your ad budget? Well, often you want to stop increasing your budget when your CPA approaches maximum CPA. So how do you calculate this? Well, you've got to find your average order value or your average sale value, and then you've got to multiply it by your profit margin. So let's say, for example, that your average order value is $100 and your profit margin is 25%. That tells us that you can afford to spend $25 maximum per customer. Okay, now if you are a lead generation business, if your website is designed to generate leads, you want to multiply this by your sales team's conversion rate. So if your sales team closes 1 in 2 customers, for example, then you'll need to multiply this by 50%. So that's going to give you a maximum cost per lead that you want to spend of $12.50. Now, you're not going to have a sales team for selling $100 products, probably. But if you did, that's the numbers. So this number is now the number that you can plug into your pay-per-click. And it's your goal, if you're starting a new pay-per-click campaign, to get your cost per acquisition to that number as quickly as possible. That's your break-even point. If you're scaling a pay-per-click campaign, you want to stop increasing your budget when you start hitting that. Now, not every company wants to run into their maximum cost per acquisition because this means it's costing you as much to get the customer as you're making from them, so you're breaking even on the sale. Now, lots of companies don't want to hit that number. You might want to hit that number if you have repeat business from that customer. You may even want to go over your maximum cost per acquisition. You might be happy to invest money, lose money on each customer, knowing that you're going to make it up in the back end. But this is still a really important metric because it shows you what that break-even point is in your ad campaign. Okay, so the final thing that we're going to talk about is attribution models. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say that I'm selling cat TPs. I have a couple of cat TPs in this very room right now, and in one of them there is a cat snoring rather loudly. Now, my cat TP digital marketing strategy is pretty well advanced. I'm running lots and lots of different channels. You want to buy a cat TP, don't you? I thought you looked like a cat person. So what you do is you search Google for cat TPs. You see one of my ads and you click on it. You then come onto my website, but you don't decide to buy it then. What happens is you go browsing around the internet and you happen to be in your Gmail account and you see a remarketing ad from me saying, oh, cat TPs. You think, oh, those cat TPs. I did want to buy one of them, but you decide not to buy one. Later on, you're flicking through Instagram and you see one of my cat TP retargeting ads. Yes, I've followed you because you've been on my website. And I say, oh, cat TPs, remember these? You're like, yeah, I still do need those cat TPs. You click on the ad, you come through to the website. Later on, you're scrolling through Instagram and you see one of our retargeting ads showing you the cat TPs. You're like, yeah, I still do need one of those. You click on the ad and come back to the website. You're browsing around the site, you haven't bought yet. Now I show you a pop-up which says, get 10% off your cat TP if you sign up for our email list. You're like, yeah, cool, why not? So you stick in your email address and you're now on our email database. But you decide not to buy the cat TP right there and then. You close the window down and you go and do something else. The next day, I send you an email saying, hey, notice that you've been on our website, here's your 10% discount code and here's our top selling cat TP. You click on that email, you go back to the website and you purchase the cat TP. So, my question for you, were you listening? Which channel do you attribute that sale to? Remember, you first came onto the website through an ad on Google. So do you say, well, that ad brought that person into our world, so therefore that pay-per-click channel deserves the credit. That's the thing that generated the ROI. Or do you say, well, actually, that sale wouldn't have happened if there wasn't the email marketing piece right at the end. That's the thing which actually generated the sale. So actually that ROI belongs to email marketing. Or do you say, well, all of the steps in between are actually quite important because without any of them, the sale wouldn't have happened? Welcome to the world of attribution. And by the way, it's a world that it's impossible to win at. Now, there are loads of different possible attribution models out there. The two most popular are first click, i.e. we attribute the sale to the marketing channel that generated that first click. In this example, first click attribution would credit the sale to that original Google ad. The other most popular model is last click attribution. So in this case, you would attribute the sale to the thing that generated the last click. In this example, it's the email marketing. Now you're probably thinking, well, neither of them seem 100% fair, because it's not really fair to say that the first click generated the sale. It's not really fair to say that the last click exclusively generated the sale. And you're absolutely right. No attribution model that's out there is 100% watertight. Any digital marketing campaign these days has loads of different moving parts, loads of components. And the reality is that all of these contribute to the sale. This is why it's so important to have a multi-channel digital marketing approach rather than just focusing on one particular area, unless you're selling something which is incredibly easy to understand. For example, if you're a locksmith, when someone's outside their house and they go on Google and they search Google for locksmith, they're probably going to either call you now or they're not going to call you at all. What's not going to happen is they're going to be stood outside in the pouring rain with their broken key in the lock, being like, no, I'm not going to call this locksmith now. But later on, while they're watching TV, scrolling through Facebook, they're like, yeah, go on, I'll give this locksmith a call for a quick chat. That doesn't really happen. So for some businesses, attribution is easier than others. But for most businesses, attribution is incredibly difficult because it's never perfect. So really what you need to do with attribution is pick one model and stick with it. But be aware that all of the different marketing channels are contributing to conversions. Now, paid traffic sources like Google ads and like Facebook and Instagram ads can be really helpful here because they show what's called view-through conversions, VTCs. These are basically conversions that have happened when someone has seen those ads. So it's essentially these ad channels taking credit for the sale, even if they didn't generate the last click conversion. Now, of course, they're doing this because they want you to continue using these ad channels, but it is also really useful to see these view-through conversions to get a feel for how impactful each of these different stages is in the process. So we'll probably talk about attribution a little bit more in another video, but I wanted to touch on it here because it is an important consideration to make and it's something that can muddy the waters slightly. So we've covered loads in this video. We've covered some really basic top-level metrics like how to calculate overall marketing ROI. Then we've had a look at how to calculate per channel ROI. We've looked at different channel-specific metrics like return on ad spend. We've looked at the difference between whether you're calculating ROI for leads or whether you're calculating ROI for e-commerce and how to feed in the impact of a sales team into average lead value. We've then spoken about how to make decisions based on the data that you're seeing. So I'm going to give you some actionable steps that you can take away and implement right now. Your first challenge is to work out what your per channel ROI is for the channels that you're running at the moment. So if you're doing organic search, if you're doing paid search, if you're doing social, if you're doing email, go into Google Analytics, have a look. Google Analytics uses last click attribution by default, by the way. Go into Google Analytics and have a look and calculate the per channel ROI of each of the different things that you're doing. Now remember that any organic channel takes time to build. You're building momentum. The same with paid channels as well, but with organic, obviously that growth period can be much longer. From there, you're going to have some interesting insights. You might feel that actually one of the channels that maybe didn't look like it was performing as well, actually it's doing a lot better than you thought it was. Conversely, you might be investing a lot more in a channel that you thought was doing really well, but actually once you work out the ROI, it's really not doing anywhere near as well as you thought. So this is really useful insight, and this can help you make logical, rational decisions, which can help you scale up your digital marketing profitably without wasting spend. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, and you're new to the channel, then please consider subscribing. We release at least one digital marketing focused video every single week. If you like the video, please also hit the like button. It really helps with the YouTube organic visibility algorithm, which is what we're all about. We do love organic growth. And lastly, let me know in the comments, how many mistakes did I make? What did you spot? Where are the errors? But what have you taken from this? And were you surprised by any of your digital marketing channel ROIs? Until next week, see you soon.